research. I imagine the idea behind this, right, is because we are trying to have more astronauts spending more time in space is to prepare them better for the realities of it. But
the mice look happy and
you
moving.
think?
So yeah,
they are moving. That's good.
That's all I've got. Meanwhile, here in science, Bill Nye the Science Guy has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame now. So he became famous in the 90s as Bill Nye the Science Guy, of course, on Disney and PBS. Before that, he was a comedian on Almost Live. He studied engineering at Cornell and worked at Boeing. He also helped make sundials for NASA's Mars rover. In January, he got the Presidential Medal of Freedom. The Walk of Fame now features 2,821 stars.
You guys have both seen it, right?
Wow.
The Walk of Fame. Yeah, it's special.
That is special.
I don't know if I've done it yet.
I did not know that he was a comedian at one
I didn't
point.
either. Most of that stuff I didn't know he worked at Boeing. That was all new stuff.
Fascinating.
Again, we have learned so much on the Good Day Orlando
We
Extra.
really have.
You haven't learned my first name, though, and that's going to remain
Not
a secret.
telling me, by the way.
Bye.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Oh, good morning to you. Welcome into Fox 35 News Plus. We are going to get right to it. Governor Ron DeSantis speaking right now in Tampa, taking some questions right now after a news conference at USF Morsani College of Medicine. The first question was asked about the state getting rid of vaccine mandates. Dr. Ladapo answered a question. Governor DeSantis speaking now. Meanwhile, on the right, we are standing by for an update any minute now from Dallas police, expected to give an update on this shooting outside a Dallas ICE facility. We know that 2 ICE detainees have been killed, 1 injured. The suspect is also dead, believed to be of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. We're expecting an update on that any minute now, so we will bring that to you live as well when it begins. But let's go ahead and get you to this news conference in Tampa, where Governor Ron DeSantis is taking questions right now.
That's developed, which is trying to impose adverse consequences on people based on them making an individual judgment. And people say, oh, mandates, oh, you got to have all the mandates. Well, how come Britain doesn't have any? How come Sweden doesn't have any? Most provinces in Canada don't have any. Or I don't see when these people come down to Florida, I don't hear people, raising alarm about that. They obviously managed to do it because they do it on a position of information and trust rather than from a posture of coercion and dictates. So we still haven't really come to reckoning. In Florida, we didn't necessarily, let that overtake our state, but some of the stuff that was happening in this country during that COVID era was very, very troubling. And the more that medical is seen as, being wielded to undermine your ability to make decisions for yourself, I think that the credibility of folks in that is there. So I know they're trying to rebuild trust. I mean, people like Jay Bhattacharya I work with, he's now the head of NIH. I think he's great. I think he's very evidence-based. But from where we were to where we are, there's still just a lot of work to do.
Governor, who are concerned and quite frankly confused about how to move forward with their own families. And so I asked you, Governor, and the First Lady, and Surgeon General Latipo, you are all obviously advocates of parental rights, leaders of this great state, and parents of young, even very young children. Will you share if you vaccinate your children, if you plan to continue to do so, and your reasoning behind it?
You want to take that? I know Joe would love that.
Great, one of the funny things about this job, I was a professor, like taking care of patients at UCLA and doing clinical trials, and I used funded clinical trials before I fortunately got the call from Governor DeSantis's office. So all this media stuff is all new to me, and some of the questions are just so funny. And this idea of well, do you vaccinate? Did you take the COVID shot? And we're talking about like it. I actually don't care about sharing information about that. I really don't care at all. But I won't. And I won't because I'm not going to participate in the silly games that so much of the media chooses to partake in instead of the substantive parts of the issues. I mean, the governor just shared the fact that we have all these countries around the world, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, the United Kingdom. They don't mandate. They don't force their population and their children to take anything, actually. They don't mandate these. That's a very substantive point, right? That's something to chew on, to reflect on, to comment on. But, we don't have that. Instead, we have, Governor DeSantis, are you going to be, taking the next vaccine for your child? I mean, that's just silly stuff. So I'm not going to participate in that.
Well, I also think, I remember, they were trying to, ding me for not taking this mRNA booster. It's like, no, I didn't do it because it just wasn't something that I thought, was necessary. And so I made that judgment. A lot of Americans made that judgment with all these things. I would also just point out in Florida, yes, there are legacy mandates that have been in statute for quite some time. There's things that we have cleaned up with the legislators' help. I mean, for example, there had been a provision of Florida law that authorized the Surgeon General to forcibly inject people, like literally pull you off the street and start injecting you. That was in Florida law. We repealed that. He wouldn't have done that anyways. He would have resigned. I mean, I wouldn't tell him to do it, but he would not have done that. But that was in Florida law, and I'm thinking to myself, man, that's something that's really significant. But of all those legacies, you have the ability, the parents, at least with respect to the elementary and middle and high schools, to do the exemptions. And I think what we've seen since COVID is I think you've seen more and more parents opt for that in much larger numbers. And that's obviously something Joe is protecting that. But to me, I think the reason why you're seeing more is because of the lack of trust. Why do these other countries have no mandates? And then on some of the core, vaccines that have been around for a long time, they have very high uptake without any mandates. And I think it's because they view it as, okay, here's a child, here's a parent, here's a physician, here's a recommended, here's why, and then parents, can make those decisions. But it's almost like on the mandates, people will say, if you don't mandate it, then people are not allowed to do it. I've heard people, how are anyone going to be able to survive if there's no mandates? You do it by just basically taking care of your family as you see fit and at physicians. But you'll hear these things, and Joe has made this point. It's like, he was practicing out in California. If a patient presents and he looks and he's like, okay, you know what? We need some blood pressure medication. He can do that, and that's kind of the clinical view. He doesn't say I believe in blood pressure medication. But people will just say, oh, I just believe in vaccines. Well, it's not a question of belief. It's a question of someone presents and then what is medically something to do. And so it really should be based on evidence and fact. But I think the coercion has been a total boomerang. I mean, what they tried to do with the COVID, it wasn't for Florida. I mean, you would have seen a lot more of this take hold around the country. I mean, we were really the bulwark. In fact, they were going to do federal vaccine COVID passports. Fauci was pushing it. Biden was basically, I think, open to it. But, some of his advisors pointed out, and this was reported, if you do that, the governor of Florida is going to fillet you for trying to do this. And I would have, because it's just not right. And now we're in a situation where I think that the amount of people that do the COVID boosters is very low. The number of parents that do it for kids is very low. And it's because they've looked at the data, they've talked to folks, and they've decided that there's not an obvious benefit from doing it. So, but yeah, I think Joe was writing in March of 2020 that lockdowns were a mistake. There were not anybody, really, very few were willing to say that at that time. And then he said, kids need to be in school in person. And as somebody that got that done in Florida, I can tell you that was not very popular either in those early days, of COVID. He also said they're not doing a good job treating it, and they didn't do a very good job treating it in many parts of the country, with the ventilators and how they did it. And then he talked about how we shouldn't have mandates and we shouldn't have vaccines. So all those things that he was doing during that time were roundly criticized, particularly by the media. But, all those, he's been vindicated on. And so I think that, what you want is somebody that's looking at evidence, that they're not just doing narratives, and that they're going to govern accordingly. But I think he has a very strong view that, his profession should not be used in a coercive way, that it's really about lifting people up. And so I think you see that in the different things that he's advocated for.
And for Dr. Latipo, what is your connection to the President and Department of Health connection between Tylenol and autism? And is there any efforts or planned efforts to make any changes here in Florida?
Oh, that is above my pay grade, but if do you want to take that one? Well, you don't have. I think, is it safe to say that you could put out some, I don't know, I mean, you'll put out guidance if there's a need to, right?
Yeah, I really appreciate what they're doing, and, it's messy. It's not one of these things that...
Can you go to the mic? Thank you.
So, yeah, I really appreciate what Senator Kennedy's doing, and, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, who worked with the governor previously, Dr. Marty McCary at the FDA, Dr. Oz also. Again, there you have the merger of good intentions and courage. And, the data are messy. I've looked at it some with acetaminophen and pregnancy. But again, I think they are at a place that is more honest. They acknowledge that not all the studies show harms, but some of them do show a relationship. And it's not it's not a total explanation for autism by any means, but it does appear to be that it's reasonable to conclude that it may be contributing to the prevalence of autism in children. So, not all the studies find that, but some of the studies do find that, and some of those studies are very good. So I think that their recommendation is the right place to be in terms of discouraging its use. Also, it's more nuanced than how the media has presented it. The FDA has stated that these decisions should be made with the physician and the pregnant woman. But so there is allowance for use of it, because fever in pregnant women is also dangerous. But it does seem that almost certainly there are opportunities where the medication doesn't need to be used and could be avoided.
What's your guidance to Floridians when it comes to that, as a physician?
I think if we're still looking at it, so we may have some more guidance, but it would probably be very much in line with where the FDA is.
Dr. Latipo?
Let me just so bring it kind of back to what we're doing with cancer, just in terms of because I think Joe made some very important points. The modern medical machinery in this country, with a lot of the big companies, they're private companies, right? So their job, if they're going to put capital on the line, they're doing that because they're trying to get a return on that investment. And many of them are publicly traded, and so that's what they have to do for shareholders. There's nothing wrong with that. That's kind of how capitalism works. But the reality with that is that is not going to lead to them pursuing investments on things that may not quite be as promising sometimes. So what we're doing, and some of the things with the Innovation Fund, is we're not concerned about monetizing on the back end. We're just concerned about being able to provide some capital, be able to do the research, be able to get some answers that can maybe use to help people. Not gonna make money on the back end of that, and I think that serves a needed purpose here. And I know some of the things with like generics and all this stuff. Like we want to provide the grants. We want people to do their thing, and if there's some stuff that can be helpful from that, that's great. All right, thanks everybody.
Governor DeSantis wrapping up his news conference in Tampa there. Meanwhile, still waiting on the update on the Dallas ICE shooting. Also, let me give you a live look inside the Florida State Board of Education meeting going on right now in Fort Walton Beach, where the commissioner just a few moments ago talked about several teachers getting in trouble over comments about Charlie Kirk. Some other things as well up for discussion. We'll get you there in just a little bit. But we're going to take a break right now here on Fox 35 News Plus, and we'll be right back after this.
appreciate what you all do, not just today, but every day to help keep us all safe. And lastly, and this is really important, I would ask all of the city of Dallas residents who can hear me right now, let's be patient, let's remain calm, and let's let our law enforcement partners, our police department, do their job. This is an active investigation. There's still a lot of unanswered questions. And I want to encourage all of you to exercise a little bit of restraint and allow them to do their job to help make sure this continues to be a safe city and that they can help us figure out what happened here today. But with that, I want to say, again, thank you to all the folks who came out this morning from our law enforcement community. I'll turn it over to our police chief, Daniel Como, to speak a little bit more directly to the investigation itself. And with that, Chief Como, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Today at approximately 6:40 a.m., we received a assist the officer call. We responded to the call, got to the scene, and we later learned that we had 4 individuals that were shot, 2 of them deceased, including the shooter. The DPD was able to locate the shooter who was deceased. We're going to be working this investigation shoulder to shoulder with our federal partners. The FBI is on scene, and right now I'm going to introduce you to the SAC of the Dallas Field Division, FBI Joe Rumrock.
Yeah, good morning. My name's Joe Rothrock. I'm the special agent in charge of the Dallas FBI Field Office. I want to first start by thanking our partners in local law enforcement, specifically the Dallas Police Department, for their quick and timely response. I can confirm at this time that the FBI is investigating this incident as an act of targeted violence. It is unfortunately just the most recent example we've seen of targeted violence, to include here in North Texas, where back on July 4th, we saw a coordinated attack carried out against an immigration detention center in Alvarado, Texas. What I can also share with you is that early evidence that we've seen from rounds that were found near the suspected shooter contain messages that are anti-ICE in nature. Again, this is just the most recent example of this type of attack. This will be a whole of government response. There will be no resource not utilized to bring all those individuals who are responsible to bring them to justice and to hold them accountable. While we're not releasing identities of any victims at this time, what I can confirm for you is no members of law enforcement were hurt during this attack. If any member of the public has information that would help the FBI's investigation, I would ask that you please report that to 1-800-CALL-FBI. Again, any piece of information will be helpful, but this will be an ongoing investigation between us, a number of federal partners, and our local partners, again, to ensure that anyone responsible is held accountable. With that, I will turn it over to my counterpart from the ICE Enforcement and Removal Office.
Good morning. My name is Joshua Johnson. I'm the acting field office director for ICE Dallas. I'll be brief with my comments, but I do want to start off by saying thank you to the Dallas Police Department, Dallas FBI, HSI, CBP, ATF, and virtually every law enforcement officer in North Texas for your support. This is the second time I've had to stand in front of you and talk about a shooter at one of my facilities, and I think that the takeaway from all of this is that the rhetoric has to stop. There are people out there who are seeing what is being placed online, and they're coming and they're doing acts of violence against ICE employees. So that's kind of all I have for today, is that it's just got to stop. It's dangerous, and people are losing their lives. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for coming. We really appreciate it. Again, thank you all so much. as it was said here today, if you do have any information, reach out to 1-800-CALL-FBI. Thank you. Thank you.
This needs to stop. Violence is wrong. Politically motivated violence is wrong. It was 2 weeks ago today that we saw a political assassination in Utah that tore the heart out of much of this country. This is the third shooting in Texas directed at ICE or CBP. This must stop. To every politician who is using rhetoric demonizing ICE and demonizing CBP, stop. To every politician demanding that ICE agents be doxxed and calling for people to go after their families, stop. This has very real consequences. Look, in America, we disagree, that's fine, that's the democratic process, but your political opponents are not Nazis. We need to learn to work together without demonizing each other, without attacking each other. And I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to the brave men and women of law enforcement. I want to say thank you to the brave men and women of ICE and CBP and everyone who puts their lives on the line to keep us safe. The divisive rhetoric tragically has real consequences. I hope that every one of us will pray, number one, for the safety of law enforcement that are risking their lives to keep us safe. Number two, for the health of those who were shot and injured today. We still don't know the full details of who was injured, but for the families also of the victims of this shooting. Violence has no place. It is wrong. And we should come together. If we want to have a debate about immigration policies, we can do so in the halls of Congress without demonizing each other, and especially without demonizing the men and women who every day put on a badge and go risk their lives to keep us safe. And we should not be putting language out there that inspires madmen to commit evil crimes. Our prayers are with the men and women of law enforcement, and we ought to come together and have some decency across the political aisle to say this violence is wrong and it needs to stop.
Senator, have you been told that immigrant detainees were the victims of today's shooting?
My understanding is the details of who the victims are still being ascertained, so I don't want to go ahead of law enforcement releasing these details. What they have said is that no law enforcement was injured, and so that's a natural inference, but I don't know the details.
Special Agent, can you talk a little bit about some of the evidence you mentioned earlier? Just for clarity, I think it's going to be a lot of questions. Our understanding is that some of the shell casings had specific writing that was relevant to the voting. Can you give us more information?
So I'm not going to go into any more details at this time. We will come back to you when we have more details to share. Again, our goal here will be transparency as those details become available, but we are still in the early stages of an investigation. Information is still coming in. When we have
that
more
news conference continuing. Meanwhile, Scott Frost has just walked to the podium. Let's go ahead and listen in as he speaks following the passing of offensive line coach Shawn Clark.
But all we can do is keep going, and we have each other, and I think the players are doing a good job of pushing through and working hard this week. So, questions?
Coach, on behalf of all of us, just wanted to say we're so sorry for what happened. Our thoughts and prayers are certainly with Coach Clark's family and everyone on part of the UCF football family. I know it's been a tough week. At what point could you even try to shift focus? Obviously, it's a big game, big fall opener this week. At what point can you even start thinking about we got to get ready for a football game?
Well, the best thing you can do is keep going. And I'm better when I'm working, but we're still going to get our work done, and we're still going to work hard. I just think the emotions of the last couple of weeks have worn people a little bit. That being said, the players have practiced really well and responded really well. The biggest thing is that, heartbreak for Janelle and Braxton and Gianna, and I know Terry and the University of UCF are going to do everything they can for them and financially, which that says a lot about the type of people that work here and that are here. And you know, all of us will be supportive in any way we can. You know, from my standpoint, I just miss my friend. I wasn't around him as long as I've been around some other people, but you know, he just had an energy and a spirit about him, and one of my favorite guys I've ever been around and coached with. So it's just a tough deal, but we got a football game to play too.
Scott, what's been your message to the players? I mean, you talked last week about the transparency involved through all this. How have you guys been there with family and faith and trying to keep everyone together through all this?
Yeah, I think, you know, for those of us with faith, that's what we have to lean on. You know, and we're not without hope because of that and comfort because of that. Shawn had faith, and so our faith means that we know he's in a better place. I think it puts football in perspective. You know, one of my first messages to the team every year is, let's be great at football. Football's what we do. We love football. Football's not life. And I think every time something like this happens, it makes you realize, as fanatic as people get about winning and losing a game on Saturdays, it's trivial compared to real things in life. And I think if football's not the most important thing, and your faith is, and your family is, I think it makes you even better at football because it keeps it in perspective. And something like this is definitely helps to put things back in perspective.
Coach, we've seen you before here where you're able to rally the team around something, whether that was Hurricane Irma back in 2017 to just moving on later on in the season. With all that experience, how do you rally them in a situation like this, as you know, difficult as it might be?
Well, I think first of all, I didn't remember the name of the hurricane was Irma. I would have lost that trivia contest. That's nothing like this. I mean, that's just missing a game. That's not a big deal. This team is starting to develop a real love for each other, and they want to play for each other. I think they feel that way about the coaching staff, and Coach Clark was probably at the top of that list as far as his guys actually caring about and loving him, because he cared about them and loved them. And when you have that kind of bond, I think you end up fighting and playing for each other. And I feel like that's what our team did last week. I think they'll do it again this week.
Coach, along those same lines, just how did Shawn connect with his players, and what kind of influence and impact do you think his legacy will have on them going forward throughout the season?
Yeah, first of all, it's not just our players. It's every, you know, the outpouring of messages and affection for him that I've received speaks to how many people that he's come into contact with and that care about him. You know, kids are smart, and they can tell if somebody actually cares about them and loves them and has their best interest at heart, if they're just there to use them as a tool to win football games or move ahead. You know, Shawn's compassion and passion for his players and love for his players was real, and they knew that. And that's why he fit in so well here. And he was a perfect example of the type of man that I want in our building.
Scott, was there a moment, I know he wasn't here long, but was there a moment where you knew you had the right guy, not just a coach, but the right person to be around your football team and on your staff?
Yeah, when I interviewed him, it was obvious. Because who Shawn was, he didn't hide it. He was who he was, and everything that was great about him shone through right away when I met him. Obviously a really good football coach too, but like I said before, you know, that's not as important as other things in life.
You said he's been one of your favorite people to be around. So what are some of those memories you've been able to have with him and create with him during the 9 months you guys worked together?
You know, when you work with somebody as many hours as we work, you know, you start to develop real bonds. I mean, we spend a ton of time together. He always had a smile on his face. he and I had some private discussions because we both have been through some really hard things in this industry and this sport, and I think we kind of shared a common sense of how things are and how to approach things because of some difficulties that we've gone through. And he and I talked about those things a lot. He was great for me to bounce ideas off of as somebody else that sat in the head coach's seat. And, you know, I just wish I had more time with him.
You mentioned the players kind of rallying together and getting back to work. Have you guys given them the resources to kind of process the feelings and then kind of the suddenness of what happened? I know you've been in the hospital for a few weeks, but it sounded like things turned pretty suddenly. How have the players kind of exercised the resources or kind of begun to process this?
We have resources. Terry does a good job with that. We have resources available for guys that need it. You know, but everybody kind of has to process it on their own. And, you know, it's harder on the O-line than anyone else, and the coaches probably. Not even hold a candle to the family, but, yeah, all those things are available for the guys. And like I said, you know, I'm the best when I'm working and have my mind occupied with other things, and I think football and playing for each other has given our guys that too.
Kind of on that same vein, you've been practicing the last couple days. How has that been to kind of get the mind off of it and to kind of get to football and same thing with the players to kind of get your mind off of this tragedy?
Yeah, exactly. Game planning was therapeutic for me. Hard to concentrate at times. Tuesday practice wasn't our best. I think it's just the emotion of everything drains you a little bit. Today's practice was really good, and you can feel the guys coming together and wanting to play for him and for each other. And we got a big test on Saturday, and we got to be ready to give it everything we got.
Can you speak to what Coach Bear has been able to do to try to keep the guys together? Obviously, this is really tough on him. He might have been, closest to Coach Clark than anyone, and just how he's been filling in. And was there maybe some help you were going to be able to find mid-season to kind of help with the O-line as well?
Yeah, first of all, Alex has done a great job. You know, he's been around Shawn enough that they speak the exact same language and would coach the exact same way. Players love him too, so he's going to do a good job stepping up for us. We kind of looked for some relief pitchers to come in and help us. You kind of need more than one guy working with the offensive line just for numbers. And Danny Hope ended up coming in. Coach Hope was head coach at Purdue, worked with Shawn for 10 years. And he was over in Cocoa Beach, so it was easy. And it was a good fit since they were so close friends and I think approached things a very similar way.
Along those lines, Scott, what was that? You mentioned Danny, but being close to Shawn as well, how much does that maybe help? There's no way to ease the transition. I guess what you guys are going through right now is bringing someone maybe he was familiar with him and maybe had the same kind of philosophies. How does that kind of help that transition?
Yeah, it's like I think that helps a little. The age differential isn't enough, but it feels like Danny's the grandpa and Shawn was the dad and Alex is the son, and there's not enough years in there to make that work, but it kind of feels like they're all coming from the same place.
Do you feel like the players are in a place where they want to play for Shawn and in his memory?
For sure. I definitely do. And again, that's just football, but our offensive guys and offensive line in particular spend a lot more time with him than some of the defensive guys, but I know it's affected everybody on the team.
Coach, I remember you've talked about how you want the team to be player-led. With what you observed, what have been some of the things you've seen the players do as they process this together?
Yeah, that's starting to take shape in practice and everything. If it's not going well, our players are making us run plays over again and speaking up if the energy's not good enough. And it's not all player-driven yet, but it's in a pretty good place. And, I don't know the conversations that are happening in the locker room, but I'm very confident that the right things are being said.
Scott, I'm sure there's some sort of plan to honor Coach Clark? whether before the game on Saturday or when you guys come back? Do you have some sort of way of paying tribute?
Yeah, you know, it seems so trivial. We're going to put our sticker on our helmet with his initials, and you know, you just wish there was something more than you can do, and you can't. And I think the best thing we can do is cherish the time that we had with him and try to fight on.
Kind of hate to kind of change the subject here, but obviously a big game with Kansas State. I know you've got connections to Coach Kleiman. Could you kind of speak on that? You guys, that was kind of your first coaching gig, right? When you were in Northern Iowa coaching on defense. Just what do you remember about Coach Kleiman from those days, and just maybe your overall impressions of Kansas State?
It's my second coaching gig was with Coach Kleiman. My first was at Kansas State. I was a graduate assistant there, I think, 06. I loved my time in Manhattan. Really good fan base. You know, being from the Midwest, it was a fun place for me to live and fit me well. Left there to go to Northern Iowa and worked with Coach Kleiman on the defensive staff. And, you know, just a ton of respect for him. We were friends, still are. He's done a great job with that program. And, you know, they've been really close to winning every game they've played. And I know coming off a bye week, they're going to have smoke coming out of their ears. Our kids know that too, and I think they will as well.
You're going on the road for the first time this season. It's the Big 12 opener. I mean, how does that kind of galvanize the team when you're all together on the road, you against a hostile environment?
Yeah, to this point, every challenge we put in front of the kids, they've done a pretty good job with it. You know, this is a whole new challenge. You know, fighting through emotions of the week, going on the road, playing in front of an opponent's crowd. You know, some new challenges that a lot of the guys, frankly, haven't faced yet. So we're trying to prepare them as well as we can, and it's going to be a tough test, and we got to try to give ourselves a good chance.
K-State started the year in Ireland, and I know a few years ago you did that with Nebraska. There's kind of a theory that there's a little bit of a hangover or difficulty getting back to.
Scott Frost talking about the death of offensive line coach Shawn Clark. He is now taking some questions and speaking about the upcoming game. The Knights do play Kansas State at Kansas State coming up on Saturday, and so trying to move forward and get prepared for that. We're going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll get you back inside this news conference when we come back.
watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday morning. We are now hearing from Alex Grinch, the defensive coordinator for UCF, speaking for the first time in this news conference following the death of offensive line coach Shawn Clark, and as the team prepares for its game at noon on Saturday at Kansas State. Let's go ahead and listen back in live.
Doing as much same as we can. Obviously, it's a great distraction for the guys. Once you get on the grass and you're in the meeting room, you're forced and you're kind of just thrust into to that. But no, I don't claim to be good at it, and I'm not sure that we've done a great job. I don't know if you can.
Coach, what are some of the biggest takeaways from the North Carolina game that you look to either hone in on or improve on for what to go into this Big 12 opener?
Yeah, I mean, the answer every week, we got to improve in every area, right? And so I saw from an effort standpoint, I thought I was pleased. The minute you say something, you kind of worry about the messaging to your guys in terms of saying, okay, that's as hard as we possibly could play. But I like the effort piece. I think we've kind of talked about it in here. We call them knockdown pieces, a play that might go for 5 yards and it gets knocked down for 7 as opposed to being a fatal defensively. I saw that, and we've seen that for the most part in the first couple weeks, not just this past weekend. And that's got to be a staple for who we are and what we are. When everything goes right for an offense and they get yards, not points, then you're kind of working in the right direction. Obviously, we want everything to be a TFL or no gain type of thing. But I thought the effort was good. Obviously disappointed with the long drive in the third. The messaging on that as well is there's plenty of opportunities to get off the field. We got to make a play to do that, play or plays. And so there's from a takeaway standpoint, obviously very pleased, 2 takeaways, and just how the impact that can have on a game. But on the same token, if you only get 2 and you got them so early, what happened to the rest of the opportunities over the course of the game? Because I can get obviously tilted in our favor early, and then all of a sudden get swung back in their favor if they're able to get a hand on the football or something like that. So don't be content with just some early successes that way. So there's a lot to coach off of through the first 3 weeks, and certainly excited to get the outcome we got.
How have you seen the players coping and handling practice through this adversity this week?
Yeah, I think for them it's go play football. And I say that it's not fair to have them do that, but it's what's required. I think they've done a good job of it. I think it's as you structure things and you're in the meeting room. I mean, the walkthroughs and you're on the practice field. It's day and age where guys don't probably tell you as much as maybe they used to because we're all kind of new, and so it's a unique atmosphere that way. But I think they've handled it well. I think what's again doing what's been required of them in that moment is kind of how I would describe doing it well. And so try to honor him this weekend.
Obviously, Coach Clark was closer to the offense, but how have you seen players on the defensive side of the ball kind of helping lift the team up, and how have you seen players just generally kind of
I think it would be a question specifically to the players, as they're around each other and those things. It's one thing Coach Frost has done a tremendous job in his time here, better than some places in the country in terms of you don't feel the OD like we're separate programs or something along those lines. But he sat next to me in team meetings, and there's a void, and I'm going to make real sure in my time here no one sits in that chair, which had nothing to do with me, but has everything to do with him. But no, I think the guys have kind of rallied around each other, which is good.
In the time you guys work together, what's kind of your lasting memories of Shawn and the relationship you guys have started to build?
Well, yeah, and all of us have had tough moments in this business. And you never want to compare an assistant coach to a head coach, and you just know that chair is so much different, what you have to deal with. But you got the unique perspective as a guy that was a head coach for a long time, especially at a place he loved so much. And I think as coaches, maybe sometimes you think you're sharing the trauma of losing football games or not having successes that you expect to have or had at other times and stuff like that. But it sometimes has a tendency to kind of bring guys together in terms of shared experiences and those things. And so, he was one of those guys that just, showed great perspective in it. What was a uniquely funny guy, and had a great humor about him. Obviously seriousness when it came to the football side of things, but a guy you could ask about his head coaching perspective on certain elements, things, and have those type of conversations as an assistant coach. You think you have all the answers, and he'd been in that chair type of thing. Just as you talk football, but family guy. And when players are coming up to him and asking him how his son's doing in baseball and some of those things, well, there's no box score in the paper, so he's talking about them, which is really, really cool. So that's a shared experience as a dad.
Coach, first road game of the season as well, Big 12 opener. What's your message to the team as you prepare for the challenge ahead?
Yeah, I think the opportunity to go on the road, you got to embrace it. You got to remind yourself why you decided to play Power 4 football. Some guys have played at this level, some guys haven't. Obviously, just a great environment this past weekend, so it's not. But they're cheering for you as opposed to against you. But just as a competitor, when the crowd is quiet, things are going well. When you get on the road, but you got to be able to handle the other side of it. And adversity as much as you feel it at home. It kind of rains down on you on the road, and so then you got to decide if a bunch of guys in purple are clapping, if that's going to wreck you, or can you stick your chest down, your shoulders back, and kind of respond in those moments. And so until you're in them together, which again that's the uniqueness of new programs every year type of thing, and new guys, we got to see it through together and expect them to obviously attack adversity and those things. It's not like we have not had adversity, but again, they'll say it a different way on the road. And again, I think for most guys as competitors, it excites you, when the crowd is raining down on you.
What are the challenges that Avery Johnson and really the Kansas State offense presents to your defense this weekend?
Yeah, the multiplicity. I mean, unfortunately, I have history with them, and I say unfortunately for a reason. Right, and this comes out of complete respect to that staff and what they do and how they attack you and use their weapons. And the quarterback has always been a big piece of the puzzle for them. You got a guy with speed traits, keep plays alive. He can make bad plays good. He's got the arm to direct it downfield if you get sloppy in some of those things. If you sell out for the run, he can beat you over top. And then they got some weapons from a skill standpoint, which again is just historically them. Whether it's coming from the backfield as a tailback or wide receiver, the speed is different, and you got to respect that. But it's very difficult to pinpoint, going against these guys that okay, this is what you need to stop, and then you can start there, and then the list keeps just getting longer and longer and longer. And then when you got a quarterback with some experience and kind of been in the fire and in battling, which he's been doing this year, like you just again the word respect comes up, and so you better respect them, and you better not let kind of like I mentioned is a good play offensively turn into a fatal. You got to fight and scratch and claw to keep them out of the end zone.
It's been a long time since
Defensive coordinator Alex Grinch speaking about the matchup at Kansas State this weekend. Also talking about the loss of offensive line coach Shawn Clark, who passed away Sunday after being in the hospital for a couple of weeks, and that's been the big topic during that news conference from Scott Frost and from Alex Grinch so far, talking about how the team is handling that and seeming to come together, expecting to play for Coach Clark and also continue to play for each other. We're going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back.
watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Well, good afternoon to you and welcome into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon live on Fox Local and on YouTube. It is noon, and so I'm going to kind of let you know where things stand right now as we continue to track and monitor a number of things, including the big national story today. Let me give you a live look as FBI agents, local police are on site in Dallas investigating a shooting at an ICE facility where they say a rooftop sniper shot and killed 2 ICE detainees, injured a third before turning the gun on himself. We heard an update from investigators just a little bit ago who talked about how this is an act of targeted violence. That's what the FBI is investigating it as. And they also said that there were anti-ICE messages on the bullet casings. Let me show you this picture that was tweeted out by FBI Director Kash Patel, who sent this. It looks like this was posted on X, or at least last edited about 15 minutes ago, where he said this morning, just before 7 a.m. local time, an individual fired multiple rounds at a Dallas, Texas ICE facility, killing 1, wounding several others before taking his own life. Obviously, those numbers have changed, but he does say FBI, DHS, ATF are on the ground with Dallas PD and state authorities. He attached this photo that he says, while the investigation is ongoing, an initial review of the evidence shows an ideological motive behind this attack. One of the unspent shell casings recovered was engraved with the phrase anti-ICE. You can see it right there, the 4th from the left. More updates will be forthcoming. He says these despicable, politically motivated attacks against law enforcement are not a one-off. We're only miles from Prairie Land, Texas, where just 2 months ago an individual ambushed a separate ICE facility targeting their officers. It has to end, and the FBI and our partners will lead these investigative efforts to see to it that those who target our law enforcement are pursued and brought to the fullest extent of justice. Thankfully, no law enforcement personnel were injured. Please pray for the injured and the deceased. And again, show you more of these live images. You see a lot of law enforcement there. We have seen them on the roof of a nearby building as well just a little bit ago as this investigation continues. Senator Ted Cruz spoke at that news conference just a little bit ago, echoing what Kash Patel said and calling for an end to attacks like this, saying this really has to stop. So we are continuing to monitor these updates out of Dallas, and we'll bring you new updates as we get them. Meanwhile, we do expect this afternoon, in about an hour from now, expect to hear from Ben Crump, a nationally known civil rights and personal injury attorney who is representing the family of 32-year-old Kevin Zavala, the man who died after riding the Stardust Racers roller coaster at Epic Universe. We expect that news conference to begin around 1 o'clock. Again, we will bring that to you live right here on Fox Local. A couple of other news conferences as well happening in that 1 o'clock hour. We expect to hear from State CFO Blaise Ngolia in Hillsborough County. Also, Senator Ashley Moody talking about hurricane recovery. So a number of things coming up as well a little bit later this afternoon. Let me give you a live look right now, though, at UCF. This is defensive coordinator Alex Grinch, one of the coaches on the football team, who is talking about their upcoming matchup against Kansas State coming up on Saturday. But this is also the first time we've heard from the coaching staff since the death of offensive line coach Shawn Clark, who passed away Sunday night. Scott Frost, the head coach, speaking just moments ago, saying football is not life, talking about the team coming together, dealing with the emotions, sending their thoughts, obviously, and prayers with the family of Shawn Clark, but also talking about getting ready for what's going to be a big test for them Saturday at noon at Kansas State, not just because of what's happening on the football field, but because of the emotions and everything going on off of it as well. Let's go ahead and listen back in here as Alex Grinch continues to speak to reporters.
None of this feels right and all those things, but no, it's just it's a responsibility to make him proud and maybe give his family something to look to over the next coming weeks. All right, thank y'all.
That was Alex Grinch, the defensive coordinator. We do also expect now to hear from Steve Cooper, the offensive coordinator, who is expected to speak here shortly. Meanwhile, just to get you caught up on something that we talked a lot about yesterday, and that's property taxes in Seminole County. The commission voting last night to vote to raise property taxes in Seminole County for the first time in nearly 2 decades. Those new rates will be on the upcoming tax bill that come out next month. Fox 35's Manny Martinez has more from last night's meeting.
All Seminole County homeowners will see their property tax bills go up. The hike is an additional 50 cents for every $1,000 of taxable value. That means the owner of a home assessed at $300,000 would pay an extra $144 each year.
Yes, the value of my house has gone up, but it doesn't cost me any less to own it and operate it.
The increase will allow us to continue funding the services that make Seminole County the best place to live in.
I was attracted to buying here because of its affordability, and I think just increasing the millage rate is going to decrease the attractiveness of buying in this county.
It's the first property tax hike in Seminole County in 16 years, and it's right on the heels of increases to the county's utility and gas taxes.
It's very frustrating, but you know what else can we do? Our bills are going up everywhere else.
Seminole County says it has historically kept property taxes low, boasting the second lowest rates in Central Florida, trailing only Lake County. But while staring at a $35 million budget shortfall, the county says it had no other choice.
You can only cut so far. You can't cut your way out of it and still give our citizens the quality of life that they expect and quite honestly deserve.
Manny Martinez, Fox 35 News.
Meanwhile, I want to get you back to this UCF news conference. We're hearing from Steve Cooper, the offensive coordinator, speaking right now about the death of Shawn Clark. Let's go ahead and listen in.
You know, we're going to miss him.
Steve, how was you've seen the reaction from the players themselves? How have they been able to handle these kind of things, and what's been the message maybe to them to get through this tough time?
You know, credit to Coach Frost again, coming back to talking about the same things. When you have purpose in your life and there's an understanding, you don't ride the emotional roller coaster, then we can compartmentalize to get our work done. And our team's done a really nice job of that. And, you know, because of how much we all care about Coach Clark, we're going to get the work done. And we're going to do what it takes to prepare to win on Saturdays. You know, that's important. So that's what Coach Clark would have wanted us to do, is to move forward. But, yeah, certainly the reality is our guys are hurting, our staff is hurting and grieving for our friend.
Coach, what has it been like with Coach Bear taking up the role now in this situation? What's it been like working with him through this process?
Yeah, Coach Bear is such a pro, and here's a guy on our staff that has known him longer than anybody else and is close to him, was as close to him as anybody else, and he comes in and because of how much he cares about the kids and how much he cares about Coach Clark, his family, and what he represents. I mean, he's just, I can't say enough great things about Coach Bear, his knowledge of football, what he's been able to do with these guys, and not just be a football coach, but be a mentor through a really tough time.
Coach, how, from your observations, how did Coach Clark connect with his players? I mean, clearly a lot of people loved him.
Yeah, one is just how authentic he is. He's no different with the staff than how he is with the players when we're in meetings or when we're on the practice field. Like, yeah, he's got a bite to him, which every good coach probably needs, in particular the offensive line. But he meets each individual person where they're at. He's just had a crazy ability to be able to relate to anyone. It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter if you're from the South or if you're from the West Coast or the East Coast. Just, yeah, he did an incredible job of being able to reach people on a level that's, I don't know, things that I try to do. Like, he's really who he is. He was an extremely authentic person, and I think that the kids, they buy into that.
Obviously, the whole team is grieving, and these are young men. These are young men, you know, still maybe experiencing a death like this for the first time. How have they kind of rallied and supported each other, and how have you and the coaching staff kind of helped in that part of the process?
When you get to be a part of a team, and that's something that we probably all take for granted, when you get to be a part of a team, you have teammates to to support you. And grief is, it's an interesting thing because you can go 5 minutes and be a normal day, and then you get hit, randomly because of something that reminded you of our friend that passed. So I think just being able to rely on your teammates, and it's no different for us as a staff, just reminding each other how much we love each other and care about each other and why we do this. These things sound cliche, but it's so real when you get to be a part of a team. And, again, credit to Coach Frost and the rest of the staff with how we've really attacked this thing for the last eight months. Like, as a staff and as a team, we know that we can count on each other, and that certainly helps.
What do you feel like you most learned from Coach Clark as a mentor, and then what would you say are maybe your favorite memories that you had of him over the 9 months you guys worked together?
Yeah, well, Coach Clark was really able to help me. When we start from ground one with this offense, and here's a guy with a wealth of experience, and stress level goes up because you got a lot of work to do in a short amount of time to get there. And Coach Clark's personality and the way he attacks and approaches everything was always with a smile, so that could always bring me back into a lot less dark place. So put it this way, Coach Clark was the light that could illuminate the room and make things a little bit lighter for us. Me in particular, I thought that that is something that I aspire to be more like, and maybe be a little bit less negative at times. Like, he's just super positive, and I'm going to miss that. And definitely that's probably one of the biggest things I'm going to take from his approach, just generally about everything, whether it's how we're going to get the practice scripts put together and how we're going to get the film watched and the schedule. The way he attacked that was always a little more level-headed, and that's something that I can take. And I'm sure that comes from his wealth of experience as a head coach, too. So that was good. And I forgot the second part of your question. Well, when we first moved out here and none of our families were in town, we got to spend a lot of time together. So maybe some of those memories are going to stay private.
Coach, you have the Big 12 opener now coming up. Just what are you interested in seeing this team do now that they're going up against a Big 12 defense for the first time this season?
Yeah, our guys are excited to play this game. Outside of everything and the grief that we're going through, our players are still excited to play this game. And I think me personally, what I'm excited to do to see is our guys go out and execute in what's I'm assuming is going to be a relatively hostile environment. It's our first road game. It's our first league game on the road. So I think probably more than anything, I'm excited to see the guys step up to the challenge, which they've done a nice job of, everything that we've thrown at them. Now, it's not been perfect, but I think our guys are prepared and ready. And we got a couple more days of work we need to get done, but I think we're excited as a whole and a collective group, and I'm speaking for the offense when I say this. Man, we're excited for the challenge that we're going to get from playing against a really good defense in a hostile environment.
You have a challenge of facing a leader in the Big 12 in fumbles recovered at this point. Just can you talk about what you've done with the team just in terms of ball security?
Yeah, we put a premium on ball security every day. So, whether it's in our stretch periods, like we always have coaches and managers raking at the ball to try to that's our everyday stuff. So not like we did anything like outside of the norm, but yeah, that's been a focus is ball security. That's every day.
Steve, what's been your impressions of Taven Jackson so far and what he was able to do last week?
Yeah, I mean, Tay's been steadily getting better every day since he got here, and in particular all things that we talked about a few weeks ago where he really got the fire lit under his butt when he wasn't announced a starter for the first week, and he's been a pro and really pleased with the execution of the offense. I think the thing that Tay's doing a really nice job of is we get in a situation where maybe the play wasn't as perfect as we hoped it might be and the look we might have gave him on scout team, and here we are, we have to play off schedule a little bit, and we have to make some subtle changes. And what he's done a good job of taking care of the football and maybe taking a play that would have been a negative or just a 0-yard gain and turn it into a 2-yard gain. 2nd and 8's a lot easier than 2nd and 10. I think that's one thing that we're proud of what he's been able to do. And it's not always going to be the flashy plays, the big-time throws. It's just the simple play of, hey, we really don't have anything here, and we're going to live to play second down, or we're going to turn it into a 2-3 yard gain. Now, of course, some of those types of plays end up being explosive plays too. So that's probably number one thing that I've been pleased with Tay, and then he's consistently becoming more consistent, which is great, and that's what we need from the quarterback position.
Steve Cooper talking about the matchup and some of the quarterback play as well. You see on the right there, while we are also taking live looks at the investigation that's going on outside a Dallas ICE facility following a shooting there. We are also getting ready for a news conference at 1 o'clock where we expect to hear from Ben Crump and the family of Kevin Zavala, who died after riding the Stardust Racers roller coaster at Epic Universe. So keep it right here on Fox Local. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more after this. Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Brooks Garner joins me now, and Brooks, still feeling like summer here now that we've started fall.
It sure is. Yeah, this is the second full day of fall, and it's going to feel just like August. Highs in the low 90s, humidity, and a chance for storms. But Garrett, all eyes are on the Atlantic right now because we've got a pair of tropical systems that may threaten the waters offshore of Florida on the Atlantic side as soon as this weekend. We're still catching some big swell coming in from a very distant Hurricane Gabrielle that's well northeast of Bermuda. You can see it on the top right-hand portion of your screen. That's heading out toward Europe. It's going to lose its tropical characteristics. But those two red circled sections, those are both tropical waves and both have a high likelihood to become tropical systems this weekend. The one on the right to the east could become Umberto, developing sooner, while the one on the left could become Imelda if it gets a name. Now, these are both going to be in the nearshore waters of Florida. Maybe I should say the medium shore waters, offshore over 200 miles based on the latest indications, but close enough where obviously it's raising an eyebrow and we've got to keep a close eye on it. Essentially, a cold front combined with an upper level system will dip into the southeast, acting like a deflector shield, pushing these systems away as they approach. But the one on the left has an 80% chance, the one on the right a 90% chance. And again, it's Umberto to the right would be most likely, followed by Imelda to the left. But the spaghetti models are in agreement that they'll curve away. Although the one on the left, the future Imelda potential, could brush the outer ranks of North Carolina. The Gabrielle, on the other hand, the flip side, well, that's moving out. Gabrielle could be an issue, though, for Europe as a non-tropical gale wind center heading for Portugal with spotty heavy rains as it moves in. It is still showing a tropical storm icon as it makes its approach to the coast of Portugal, but it would likely lose its tropical characteristics after it reaches the Azore in Canary Island longitude. So let's talk about the forecast here locally. Today we're going to have a few isolated thunderstorms developing, first on the coast on the Atlantic side near Titusville and then working inland. Looks like we have a slightly higher chance for a couple of downpours around Sanford today than we did yesterday. Obviously we had a lot of rain on I-4, and then today we're going to see a repeat. Folks in Oviedo are like, hey, where's our rain? We need the rain here in Oviedo and Juliota. Hopefully we get some today, but if you don't today, you'll get some as we head into the rest of this week. Beautiful calm conditions on Lake Fairview with a bright sunshine. Already we're in the 80s. We're on the way today to the low 90s. We'll do about 9 degrees better than what we've currently got with a high of 92. That represents a high temperature running about 4 degrees warmer than normal, topping out about 92 to 93 degrees. As we look ahead to the rest of the week, we'll be at a 60% chance for tomorrow through Saturday, followed by lower rain chances this weekend in the anticipation that those nearby tropical systems will actually put some drier air into our region on their back west side where we reside, and we'll dodge any threat from those storms. That's the latest, Garrett, but I urge folks to stay close to the forecast in case there are any changes. Obviously, if you have a tropical system in your general region, you got to watch it carefully for any kind of unforecasted deviations. Don't anticipate that at this time, but we've always got to be on guard.
Yeah, that's a good point. Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Brooks Garner, we appreciate you joining us.
You got it. We're watching it closely, Garrett. Thanks.
We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
All right, welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. Governor Ron DeSantis was in Tampa earlier today. We had the chance to hear some of the question and answer portion of his news conference. He was talking about the successes of Florida's cancer initiatives, specifically the Florida Cancer Innovation Fund, and the good that that has been able to do. $1 billion in cancer research and treatment since 2019. They're also opening up a new round of applications for that funding. Here is some of what Governor DeSantis had to say earlier today in Tampa. Take a listen.
You know, the football team beat the Gators, and so I know a lot of people here were excited about that. Miami's a little bit difficult, but you know, they got a pretty good runway from here, not necessarily going to be facing teams that caliber, so they've got a good shot, you know, to have a really good year. And got a big game on Sunday with the Eagles coming to town with two undefeated teams with Tampa and Philly, so I'm going to be watching that for sure. But the purpose of us being here is to discuss the success that we've had with the Florida Cancer Innovation Fund and other Florida cancer initiatives as part of the University of South Florida's World Cancer Research Day Symposium. We are also going to make an announcement about the new round of applications for funding through the Florida Cancer Innovation Fund. And I'm here joined, of course, by my wife and Florida's First Lady, Casey DeSantis, who's had a huge role in advancing so much of what we've done with cancer research. We also have the Surgeon General of Florida, Dr. Joe Ladapo, Secretary of our Agency for Healthcare Administration, Siobhan Harris, Dr. Nick Panetta, University of South Florida, and Dr. Tracy Crane, University of Miami Miller School of Medicine. We have really done a lot, certainly since I've been governor, to help advance the ball when it comes to cancer research and treatment. Since 2019, we in the state of Florida have invested more than $1 billion in cancer research and treatment. And that's an increase of funding for cancer programs by 114% prior to me taking office. This year alone, Florida's committed nearly $218 million to cancer research through 3 different initiatives that are transforming how we prevent, detect, and treat this disease. Back in about a decade ago, the Florida legislature established the Florida Consortium of National Cancer Institute Centers program in 2022. That program was renamed in honor of our great First Lady, who, of course, was coming off battling breast cancer in 2021 and 2022, and she is now the namesake of that. This program, bearing her name, was fully funded this year at $127.5 million. And we really appreciate it. I know we worked very hard with Senate President Ben Albritton to make sure that we got that done. So that program directs funds to Florida's 4 hospitals that have NCI designations, and that is Moffitt here in Tampa, the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, UF Shands in Gainesville, and Sylvester Cancer Center in Miami. And we know a lot of them do a lot of great work, and we appreciate about that. But we're also proud of the Cancer Connect Collaborative, which was established by the First Lady. This is a national model focused on accelerating research, sharing best practices, and turning data into action. Florida's Cancer Connect Collaborative is designed to break down barriers that slow progress in the fight against cancer. And it's built on 5 guiding pillars: data, best practices, innovation, honesty, and funding. We're bringing together public and private stakeholders to reshape how cancer care is delivered in Florida. Now, through the Cancer Collaborative, we established the Cancer Connect Collaboration Research Incubator, which is now fully funded at $30 million. This incubator is designed to focus on areas of practice that are often underserved, like pediatric cancer treatment, which is only 1% of all cancer cases. Every 5 years, the collaborative identifies a specific area of focus to specialize in, and for this 5-year term, which started this year, the focus will be on pediatric cancer. So this means Florida will make a major targeted investment in pediatric cancer research at Florida's 4 children's specialty hospitals: Wolfson, Johns Hopkins, Nemours, and Nicholas. They are all eligible for multi-year grants. They're going to be able to expand clinical trials, improve treatment protocols, and advance real-world cures. And we want to make sure that we are not just funding projects, but actually achieving outcomes. Florida's home to 6% of the nation's pediatric cancer cases. We're 6.5% of the nation's population, so that would flow from there. But we have a clear path to keep more of our children cancer-free and to provide hope for families across the state. And not that any of these cancer cases are easy, but when these kids are getting cancer, it's a very tragic thing. It's very significant for the families involved, and no one wants to see these young kids suffering like this. And so if we can be the difference maker in that, we are absolutely going to do that. Now we also have the Cancer Innovation Fund. So this was established in 2023 with an initial investment of $20 million. And the philosophy behind that is, yes, we've got these NCI institutions, you have this, you have other opportunities with maybe not as much institutional leverage, but who are seeking to do good things. Some of our smaller startups, some of our rural facilities, that may not necessarily get as much dollars flowing there. So the funding for this program is available only to Florida-based research institutions. We've already allocated $80 million to support 95 research projects across the state. And this year's additional funding of $60 million brings the total investment over just a couple-year period to $140 million. And so that's a real significant commitment on behalf of the people of Florida. We want to see partnerships between universities, research institutions, and healthcare facilities throughout Florida. We want to see harnessing all the collective expertise and resources to try to produce really strong outcomes. And we've had a lot of success stories, which I know the First Lady will likely talk about when she gets up here. But for my part, I'm just proud to announce that the Florida Cancer Innovation Fund this week will be accepting applications for this year's first round of funding through the Florida Cancer Innovation Fund. And so that application period will open. We will have $60 million available for the applicants. And of course, brings the total investment to this fund over $140 million. This cycle's applications will focus on research related to preventative nutrition as well as emerging medical treatment options for cancer patients. This obviously dovetails with some of the health initiatives that we're doing, led by Dr. Ladapo, the First Lady, and Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins. Research does show that about 40% of cancer cases are preventable through lifestyle changes, including nutrition. This cycle's funding prioritizes projects that seek to increase preventative practices and or learn more about what we can do in our daily lives to prevent or limit cancer development. So as of 2022, there were more than 18 million cancer survivors in the United States. In the next 15 years, that number is expected to grow to 26 million. We need to work hand in hand with all of our partners in Florida so that we lead on cancer research and innovation. This will make difference in people's lives. And, if you think back to where we were decades ago to now, it's been huge progress that's been made. I mean, some of these things that used to be a death sentence, now, if you catch it early enough, you have great prospects. I mean, really good statistics. So that's encouraging, but we got to do more, and that's exactly why we're here today. So those applications will be, that window is open this week, and we want you to be able to use that $60 million and really focus on things that have a high impact potentially in people's lives. Okay, we're going to hear from a lot of our folks that are here today, and I will start with my better half, our great First Lady.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to be brutally honest, not one of my favorite things that I like to talk about. Dr. Panetta can attest to that, but I mean, it's just so incredibly important that we continue to do what we've done in the state of Florida to really give hope to a lot of people who are struggling or who have family members who are struggling. I'll talk a little bit about the why for me, because it goes back to a very personal story when I was in the hospital. And I remember I was getting a chemotherapy infusion, which is never enjoyable when you're hooked up to these machines and you're getting these toxic chemicals and you have a cold cap on your head and you have gloves on your hands to prevent the neuropathy, and you're like literally sitting in an ice cube trying to watch Netflix. But it's really hard to like pay attention when you're going through all of this. And I remember one of my physicians came in and I was trying to just rationalize what in the world was going on. I'm relatively young. I have a 1, 3, and 4-year-old at home. And I'm just wondering, like, how did I get cancer? I had no genetic predisposition. I didn't have any significant family history. And I remember one of my physicians saying to me, "It's sad." And I'm thinking to myself, well, of course it's sad. Like, he goes, no, it's sad, standard American diet. And when you ever have one of those moments where something hits you like a lightning bolt and you're like, because I had thought this whole time I was doing everything right. I mean, I thought I was eating well. I thought I was exercising. But it really started to evolve for me for what is healthy? What does it mean to eat well? What does it mean to have a healthy lifestyle? And I really just kind of dove into this path into two fronts. one of which was through the Cancer Collaborative. So that was kind of the initial foray into all of this. And that started with Cancer Connect. And that was important to me at the time because, one, I wanted to make sure that people were able to access and know where the resources were, because when you get a diagnosis like this, your mind is swirling and you don't know where to go. And so to be able to have a platform to provide an avenue to find meaningful resources, I thought was really important. And then also the stories, because as I was traveling around the state and I was talking to people, you found out you weren't alone, that there's so many people. And there were stories of inspiration, quite frankly, because I met people stage 3, stage 4, stage 2, whatever, who had beat it. And I remember it being very encouraging to me when you meet somebody who's a stage 4, stage 3 cancer survivor and they're like, yeah, I can do it, you can do it too. Man, that puts you in the right mindset to be able to persevere and to fight. And I felt very privileged to be in this position, to be on the receiving end of a lot of that. And I said, man, we need to do more to be able to get that out to people who might not hear that. The other thing was I was just overwhelmed by the amount of letters that I got at the time from so many people across the state that took the time to really write some meaningful things to me. I kept every single one of them. I tried to write every single person back, but I really wanted people to feel the same sentiment that I did when I got those letters. It also led into the Cancer Collaborative that the Better Half talked about. That was a big deal, and that was really those 5 tenets that he mentioned. Data, coming to really learn more about cancer in Florida and how the government, kind of gets involved with all of this through our Agency for Healthcare Administration. There's a lag on the reporting data. So it was like a 2-year delay before we were getting a lot of this in, and we weren't doing reoccurrence data. And with the numbers skewing lower and higher, and particularly with the reoccurrence rates, I'm like, man, we need to really understand where we're going so we as a state are well positioned to be able to help, particularly if there's a certain part of the state or a certain kind of cancer. How can we best react to some of this from a government's perspective? The investment in the research, which is really important, making sure there's an ROI for the taxpayer, making sure that the quality of care is there, and investing in good outcomes for the people. Breaking down the silos of the hospital systems. That's really been, honestly, a privilege of mine to work with different entities across the state, because I tell everybody, I said, we're at war with cancer. We should all be in it together. If Hospital A has a really good procedure, then Hospital B should be able to utilize this too, and we shouldn't have competitive advantages over one over the other. We should make sure that everybody has, opportunities to be able to get that good quality of care. Innovation and new technologies, I'll talk about that. Important that opening up these application processes 3 to 4 times a year instead of waiting for the fiscal year to open up one big application window is important. Again, we're at war with cancer. We don't have time to wait for a fiscal year. We need to get in and do it now and provide avenues for investment that might not get avenues prior to all of this. And then the prevention. So I go back to my sad story with my physician, standard American diet, and really ties into what we're doing with the Florida MAHA Commission. And it goes back to that question, is what is healthy and what is in our foods? Getting off on a little bit of a tangent with MAHA, one of the things that I've really not enjoyed learning about is this practice that they have federally called generally accepted as safe. Basically, it's a loophole for corporations to be able to convene their own panel of experts, deem a substance as generally accepted as safe, and then put it into food without having to give a heads up to the FDA. And I think that there's some problems with that, especially when you're looking at all of these processed foods and you read the ingredients, and half the time, if you just read the ingredients and you didn't know what was in the bag or what you wouldn't even know what it is. So I think we have to take a really hard, long look at what in the world is in our food supply. And I know that we've been working with our federal partners, and I've had personally a conversation with Secretary Kennedy about this. I mean, this is really important that we understand what it means to be healthy and what is in our food. So the idea of trying to live a healthy lifestyle led us with this first round of applications that are going to go out from the $60 million in the Innovation Fund to 2 main things. One is nutrition and health, to really try to prioritize and incentivize grants and funding for prevention or for treatment. or I shouldn't say treatment, for people who are battling cancer, how diet and nutrition plays a role in better outcomes and why that is so important. I remember when I got diagnosed, I had this lady, and she would send me all the time these books and letters. She's like, you need to eat broccoli and pineapple. And so, man, I was eating broccoli and pineapple like it was going out of style. I was eating it every day of the week and twice on Sunday. And I was just, but the question for me was the why. Why is this so important? Why is food medicine? Why is this helping my body? And I think that's one of the things that we really want to empower people with is, okay, so you're saying this is good. Don't just tell me eat your broccoli. Like, you know, like my eyes would glaze over if the government came and told me to eat your broccoli, right? But eat your broccoli, and here's why it is so impactful to your health and what it does at a cellular level and how you're giving yourself a better chance. And after all, for me, it's like, I just don't want anybody to go through what I went through. As a mom of a 1-year-old, was not fun. What I put him through, not enjoyable. He's a trooper. And I just think, man, if there's something that we can do, yes, there are pharmaceutical interventions, but to get in front of it, to prevent it, to help have people have better outcomes as a result of diet and nutrition, man, that's really impactful. And it seems so simple that it might be overlooked, but it's just, it's so important. So that's one of the components of this first round of grants that are going out. And then the second portion of this, and honestly, I've had so many people come up to me and talk about this, and that is the generic drug repurposing component of this grant. And so that's specifically for things like ivermectin. So I know that that's been in the news quite a bit. It made a lot of news during COVID. Mel Gibson was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he was talking about people that he was friends with, and they overcame stage 4 cancer. And so here's like my perspective, and I've talked to the Surgeon General about this. Like, that's generic form. I think it costs like 77 cents per pill. Is there any incentive on the part of some to want to research this when you're not guaranteed to have a big ROI, right? If you have a novel technology or a pharmaceutical and you have that monopoly and that competitive edge, well, then you're probably going to make a lot more money. If you're researching like something like ivermectin that's generic, are you going to be able to, A, find a study that you can get the money to be able to fund it, but are you guaranteed revenue for your company going down in the future? I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that we should look at it. We should look at the benefits of it. We shouldn't just speculate and guess. We should, as the state of Florida, with over $1 billion in funding since Ron DeSantis took office for cancer, we should be looking into things that are in generic form. And do they show outcomes? And do they show hope for people who are suffering? And we're uniquely positioned to do that because we're not in it for an ROI from a corporate standpoint. We're in it for an ROI on behalf of you, the taxpayer, and you who has a family member who's suffering from cancer, and God forbid that you suffer from cancer. And so that's why I think we're uniquely positioned to be able to help people. And I'm just, honestly, I don't like talking about cancer ever. I told Dr. Panetta on more than one occasion I'd rather sit in my closet and never say the cancer word again. But I am so immensely proud of what this state has done to really step up, to try to provide hope to a lot of people, to invest in meaningful things. It's one thing to appropriate money, but it's another thing to drive outcomes, to hold yourself accountable, and to try to incentivize prevention and better treatment. So very proud of this guy for a lot of reasons, because he put up with me while I was battling cancer, but very proud of what he's done to really stand by me through the fight and to give hope to a lot of people across the state.
Joe?
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Casey. It's always a pleasure to hear you talk about this area and to share your passion with all of us. And it's such an interesting thing. There are at least two things I want to recognize. One is that Florida is so unique because there are a lot of, obviously, many governors out there. But we here not only have, and there are a lot of people who are very well people, but what is very unique here in Florida is that we also have courageous people. So when well intentions meet with courage, you can make wonderful things happen. And listening to Casey there, this is what we're seeing here in Florida with how we're thinking about, specifically under her leadership, how we're thinking about directing these funds that we have for cancer research, thanks to Governor DeSantis and our lawmakers here. That conversation isn't happening anywhere else. And why isn't that conversation happening anywhere else? So, we are in an ecosystem that that feels normal because that's how things are. People just really become acclimated to their environments, but it's really abnormal. So, reflect for a moment on the fact that a common drink that we give young people and kids to hydrate has these petroleum-based dyes because they make the drinks look brighter, and that's better for sales. Like that is what is normal now. That's an example of what is normal now. And that's just one example. We're literally surrounded. The ecosystem reeks of that. But it feels normal because human beings are great at adjusting and acclimating to their surroundings. But it's totally abnormal, and it undermines the health of each and every one of us. Have no doubt about it. I'll share some other examples. So I'm a physician, and most of my care at UCLA, and I sometimes go to the county health departments here to see patients, but most of my care was in the hospital. And any doctor who's here, how many times have we walked into a patient's room and looked at that tray of food? I literally, you walk into a patient's room, you look at the tray of food, it is nothing I would ever put in my body. But yet we come around, we talk about the vitals, we talk about what the patients are feeling, we talk about the plan for the day. We never talk about the fact that morning, noon, and night, they are getting these plates of stuff that most of us wouldn't eat. And that's normal. And I was part of it. And, never said, never did anything about it. And even, going to a higher altitude and looking out, the ecosystem we have now for health, it's not one that is oriented or designed to actually improve our health, because that's not where the incentives are. The incentives are very clearly with profit. And I don't say that as a good thing or a bad thing. Clearly it's led to tremendous amounts of innovation, but what it has not led to is tremendous amounts of health. And we are certainly able to, if someone has like a cancer that we have a precision chemotherapeutic agent for, wonderful, absolutely amazing, right? Lots of attention goes to that, and thank the Lord that we have that. But, take a few steps back. How did we even get in that situation, right? How is it that, bring up something else, like electromagnetic field and electromagnetic radiation, which we're all baking in, right? And there is research out there and animal models that show harm from that, like serious and substantial disruption to our physiology, to the physiology in these animal models, like very clearly, indisputably. And there's human data too that has also demonstrated some harm. But when do our policymakers, when do our public health officials, when do those conversations happen about any of these things? Like they're not happening, right? Because it's normal for us to just accept them. And by the way, some of the research that is used to justify the safety is like funded by individuals that are funded by companies like Motorola, right? But again, these things, they're not normal, but we've just come to feel that that's just how things are, so it's normal. We're baking in an environment of abnormality that is definitely not serving our health. It's not serving our kids' health. Secretary Kennedy there it's just so ironic to see him fighting for everything he wants to do, he hits a wall with. And it's like he's literally fighting for the children of the people who are putting up these walls. I'll share a story about like our kids. We've got 3 boys. So one of my boys, if you give him, you know, I don't know, like, you know, Halloween, okay? You go around the neighborhood, collect candy. It's hard to not let them eat some of the candy, right? And, you know, the candy's got red 5 and blue this and all this stuff, right? All these manufactured substances. And, you know, for one of my other boys, his physiology is probably like mine. He can eat it, doesn't really make a difference. But one of my boys, my middle son, if he eats even a little bit of that stuff, I mean, you would think that someone like, you know, I don't know, like sort of pulled him out and replaced him with some like wind-up toy or something. And we, you know, we're different. And yes, there's like, again, this normalization of all this SH*T that is put into the food that we eat and our kids eat. But it's also important as part of health to recognize that there's actually a lot of, we're different. Like each one of us has our own unique physiology. And that recognition, there's very little of that. You know, you got some people who are very resistant and able to tolerate the different insults, the different chemical and radiologic insults that we experience, right, from whether it's the electromagnetic fields or, you know, or the food dyes, or whatever else. There's some people who, you know, their mitochondria, their physiology is able to tolerate it. And there's some people for whom it just throws their systems into a total tailspin. And even that recognition, like, is not there. And a major reason why it's not there is because it doesn't fit in with the current ecosystem, which is primarily, and again, it's led to lots of innovation. It's not a judgment on it, but it is a reality that it serves, its primary purpose is for profit. It is not for our health. And the keys to our health are in all of these areas. So, you know, nutrition, I mean, I'm myself, I'm blown away. And fortunately, you know, my wife had the intuition to kind of help us with our boys, and particularly my most sensitive boy. And we have him on a very strict diet, and it's like amazing. It's just, it's completely changed his behavior, and it just blows my mind that exists. And obviously he's not unique in that way. There are lots of kids like this. You know, I'm so grateful that my wife had the intuition to sort of find a way for us to navigate a better, healthier path for him. And he eats differently than my other boys, but we're trying to move everyone in general in the same direction. But there are important insights that our system is not designed to, you know, to uncover. And here we have this Florida Cancer Innovation Fund, and that's the role that you know, under Casey's vision that we're aiming to fill. That's the area that we're aiming to fill. These areas that speak to health but currently are not being addressed because we just don't have a system to do it, a system that's designed to do that. You know, Casey mentioned ivermectin, for example. I mean, there's been a lot of chatter about it, and this very simple drug that happens to be very safe, by the way, as unfortunately, you know, it's been weighed down by all this politics, especially during the Biden administration and during the federal leadership, you know, that even President Trump in his first term had to deal with. But it's not only just that drug, but there are other drugs too that have promising preclinical data, don't yet have clinical data, and may not have an easy avenue for those gaps in the clinical data to be filled because of the model that we live in. So it's really terrific that we're going to be looking at that, right? You know, we're going to be looking at alternative therapies that don't have an inherent financial model, an inherent financial sort of component for the companies, for the pharmaceutical companies to invest in. Exercise and nutrition, right? Even for people, either for the prevention of cancer or for the treatment of cancer. Merck and Pfizer are not going to be funding those studies, but in the Cancer Innovation Fund, we're interested in that. And there actually are promising clinical trial data from NIH-funded studies that show that can actually make a difference for patients with cancer. reducing inflammation seems to be a huge area of opportunity, again, for prevention and for treatment of cancer and lots of other conditions. So, you know, I hope that we continue to reject the normal and we, you know, pursue a path that feels righteous, that feels like we're actually, you know, aiming toward the thing that we want to improve. That opportunity is there. Thankfully, we have the leadership uniquely in this state to do it, and I hope it spreads like all those minor viruses that my critics are afraid of or something. All right.
Dr. Joseph Ladapo, the Florida Surgeon General, speaking at that news conference earlier today in Tampa. We're going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we will be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Well, good afternoon to you and welcome into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer and thanks for joining us as we near the 1 o'clock hour here. We are waiting on 3 different news conferences to begin any minute now. Just want to let you know of what we are anticipating.